Welcome to NIMSY's first edition of Not the Science Type Watch Party. I am Alexis Constantini. I'm a NIMSY coach. Myself and Kat Garland were a part of writing the discussion guides that are part of the film series. So I personally have been a part of NIMSY since 2013. I started as a teacher in the NIMSY program in New York City. I've been teaching for 20 years. I currently teach AP Environmental Science as well as some other electives. And I have been at the same New York City public high school for the last 20 years. So that's an accomplishment, I feel like. And Kat Garland, who also worked on these discussion guides with me, she is an experienced physics teacher and couldn't be here with us tonight. But we hope that you will enjoy the film that highlights the accomplishments of four phenomenal, brilliant women in partnership with 3M, who we thank greatly for their production of this docuseries and their partnership with NIMSY. And tonight we're going to focus on one of the four women. Her name is Dr. Ciara Sivels. She is the first woman, Black woman to receive a PhD in nuclear engineering. And she has a lot to say about the relationships between teachers and students and how inspiring those can be, and finding your passion. So we will kick off with the first edition of Not the Science Type, watching Dr. Ciara Sivels talk about her story and her journey.
When I was in high school, I got an academic award. We're at the ceremony, and I'm walking up to get my award, and my mom is sitting there. And she says, "Represent." And I, as a kid, had no idea what she meant by that. And when I got to the stage, and I'm looking around, I was the only Black person up there. Oh, what she's saying is represent for the community, represent for Black people, because you're the only one up there that looks like you. My name is Dr. Ciara Sivels. I'm a nuclear engineer. Never in a million years, if you would have asked me back in high school if I would have been a nuclear engineer, I would have said, hell no. Take that out. I'm originally from Chesapeake, Virginia. The school I went to was Hickory High School. It was kind of more predominantly white. My parents, started to sit me down and say, okay, look, you're not like the other people in your class. You look different. People may make assumptions about you based on the way that you look. And as a kid, I didn't understand, what they were trying to tell me. I kind of saw them as being dramatic. But over time, I started to realize, okay, they're preparing me for the world. As a minority, you're gonna have to work harder. That's the first thing I ever made when I went to MIT, and those people ate that lasagna up. And I didn't even like it because it didn't have the sage. Cooking is something that's really big in my family, and it's something that I felt like I was good at. It came natural to me. And at the time, being a chef was the only thing that I really considered for a career, and something that I was really passionate about and never had any thoughts about doing anything else. Something that my parents pushed was having really good grades and making sure you did well in school. I was good in math and science, but I never saw it as an opportunity to have a career. And it wasn't until I took chemistry that my love for science really started to blossom. I was really interested in the atom, the periodic table, how these elements come together and create new things. In that chemistry class that really sparked my interest, my teacher, Mr. Harrell, he was the one to make that connection between chemistry and cooking and engineering for me.
And you said, yeah, I'll probably just go to, local college here or culinary school. I said, Ciara, you're one of my best chemistry students.
And he said, well, you should look into being a chemical engineer. Have you heard of that? Do you know what they do? And I was like, no. And he was like, go look it up and come back and tell me what you find. He was someone that challenged me. He was the first person to say, why don't you take an AP class? He didn't have to do that. But he saw something to where he was like, I feel like I can impact her career, and that's what he did. And so I would bring him different schools, and he'll be like, that's a good school, but I think you can apply somewhere better. And when I looked at MIT, I was like, oh man, it's like 6 or 8% acceptance rate. Like, I don't think I'm ever gonna get in there. So when I brought that to Mr. Harrell, he was like, yeah, this is the kind of school that you should be applying to. I said, Harrell, you're the best. I will be sure to harass you next year and more years to come.
And you kept your word. You can harass me anytime you want. Anytime you want.
Oh, this is so great. It was a classmate that said, hey, didn't you apply to MIT? Like, did you check and see if you got in? And I was like, no, I'm gonna go to VCU. And he was like, oh, well, you should just check. And so I went and I checked and I got in. And they were like, you got into MIT because of the demographics. And that stuck with me because I was like, well, what is it that they're saying about me? What are they saying about the institution? And that kind of pushed me to go because it was like, okay, well, you guys are mad that I got into MIT, so now I really gotta go. MIT was the first time I really got challenged because that's the first time I failed a class. That's the first time I was making like C's and D's.
So I just remember you always calling and being so upset and crying on the phone because you got a B at MIT. And I'd be like, you need to hang up and call Mom because I can't understand what you're saying. So you didn't know that was normal for you to not get straight A's, especially somewhere like that.
That's what I was used to doing, so.
Yeah, and it's not normal.
So after MIT, I went on to the University of Michigan and got my PhD in 2019. So I was the first Black woman to get a PhD in nuclear engineering. I struggled with the idea of being the first because it was like, yes, I'm the first, I'm gonna open this door up for other people coming behind me, but I also was like, why did it take so long? How are they still the first Black woman to do X? I think part of it, yes, is systemic racism. We weren't even allowed to go to an institution like MIT. When I was presented with the opportunity to go to a place like MIT, to go to a place like Michigan, I saw that as an opportunity to open the door for people that look like me to come in and be involved in these fields. And now I've arrived at Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab, where I'm a nuclear engineer. I focus more on radiation simulations, specifically looking at how radiation affects materials. So when we irradiate something, how does that change the atom? How does it change its composition? How does it change its structure? When you look at rural communities or small towns or minority communities, there's an issue of access, there's an issue of exposure. Things like social media are ways that we can start to break down some of these barriers. So at MIT, one of the things that came to the forefront for me was that I was passionate about teaching and this idea of mentorship, this idea of inspiring the next generation, showing them that people that look like them are out there in these fields. And we are trying to create a narrative in a community to show the next generation of STEM leaders that, hey, this is possible and it's fun. I tell kids that anything is possible. No goal or dream is too small.
Each year we ask a student admitted to MIT to share with us the name of a teacher who has been especially influential in his or her development. It is a remarkable achievement and a great honor to change a life, so we congratulate you on being named this year by Ciara Sivels. You do the work from which all of society benefits. Congratulations again on your excellent work. We at MIT are deeply grateful.
Yeah, and they're not lying. You changed your life. And I think that's the nice thing about being a mentor, because you encounter kids very early on in their career journey, and especially young Black girls, and you open their eyes. Then they look at you and think, oh, if she can do that, I can do that. And my message to them is, yes, you can.
That was Dr. Ciara Sivels in her own words about her journey and how she became the first Black woman to receive a PhD in nuclear engineering. And I think it's a fantastic way for us to begin thinking about Women's History Month and the role of women in STEM. And this is a film that will help lead conversations with our students about women in STEM and to see themselves in STEM careers and into the future, and hopefully guide them. And that was kind of the goal of our creating the companion guide for the film. And the 4 separate companion guides will discuss both activities that you can do in class, but also some questions and discussions around identity. So just to make sure that everybody is aware, we do have the chat, so you have the opportunity to leave comments in the chat if you need to, or ask questions about the guide, or anyone ask any questions about how we might use this in class. Again, I am still currently teaching, so this is something that I wrote, or we wrote, Kat and I wrote, in terms of knowing that we would want to use this in our own classrooms. And so how can we use this to make it the most out of the film for our classes? So with with the film piece behind us, we're going to go through the discussion guide. And again, please feel free to ask questions. We will take a little look at the discussion guide, which is not technically available until April 1st, widespread, but you are getting an opportunity to preview it here. This one is specifically for Dr. Sivels, and there will be 3 others for the other nights if you join us on the other nights. And there will be an Amazon gift card giveaway at the end of the evening. So if we are going to take a moment now to take a look at the discussion guide, this is the first page of the discussion guide, which is a little bit of background information on both the 3M film as well as Dr. Sivels. It's also, we've used some information from the If Then collection, which is another partner of NIMSY. And this is one of her power poses. I think it's a fantastic photograph of her, and her lab at Johns Hopkins. And there's some background information on Dr. Sivels, and then a little bit of information on the project, on the docuseries about the 3M project. So we begin the discussion guide with some before you view the video type of questions and prompts. And each of the discussion guides will begin in the same way, where we ask students to think about or discuss or write, in some cases, different experiences that they've had that are going to relate to one of the specific parts of each individual scientist. And I'm hoping that you all can see the discussion guide clearly. And each of the bullet points is going to represent a different type of engagement activity that you can do with the students. So you can engage around discussions on what they think they want to do after. For Dr. Sivels, this one specifically, you might want to talk about what are students thinking about doing after high school. Have they thought about it? Are they prepared for what they are going to apply to college for? Do they think they're prepared for it? Do they think they know, or are they in a place of completely, I'm not sure, and I'll figure it out later, which is also okay. So there's some possible prompts, and I'll just read a couple of them just in case you are having a hard time seeing. Consider what you're passionate about. Are you thinking a way to pursue that passion after high school? Who in your life has encouraged or discouraged you to pursue that passion? What role do they play in your life now? And you could also have the students do interesting, or can do turn and talk, where they can discuss what they have brainstormed or what they have thought about. They can jot it down and do kind of a free write to their answers. They can absolutely just have a whole class discussion depending on the size of your class, whatever will work for your classroom. It's just some ideas for getting the conversation started about career choice. So the next piece is a graphic that has her passion was cooking in the beginning of the film. So what could she have done if she followed that passion of cooking? What kinds of careers could she have followed? And it's just kind of like a thought experiment on picking your passion and what careers could that passion lead to. And you can have the students do the same for their own passions. And then the second prompt you can do with them is about like drawing a timeline for how their dreams may have changed over time. And if it's possible that there may still be something in the future that they haven't realized that they want to do yet. And then that moves us into the during the video phase, where we have placed specific questions at certain points in the film. And because each one of the individual scientists' films are pretty short, you can absolutely play one of them or all four of them. But the way the guides were broken down was to do one at a time. So for the first one, you might want to pause at the 2:21 mark, and you would talk about Ciara's parents sitting her down and saying that you're not like the other people in your class, and having a conversation about what that means and what it meant for her and how that changed how she might have participated in some of the classes in her school, and how that might have influenced her conversations around what her future might look like. You can also have the students then think about themselves and their own identity, and do people make assumptions about themselves, about them, each individual student, and why might they make those assumptions, and how they feel about the effects of those assumptions, and if that has influenced any of their own decision making. And then we'd watch a little bit more of the film and then do another stop and jot in which they might have another conversation about making decisions, or later on in the film, why did it take so long for a woman, particularly a Black woman, to become the first woman to receive a PhD in nuclear engineering? What might have been some of the barriers that were put in place that stopped her from, or stopped other women from being able to accomplish that goal? And then you could have a full-on class discussion about social media and mentorship and breaking down barriers. And those are different activities or conversations that you can have with students during the actual film. After the video, you can have students write about their experiences or the experiences of other underrepresented populations and have a reflection moment. And kind of focus that reflection moment around when, at the very beginning of the film, how Dr. Sivels' mother told her that she should represent, and what that meant, and what it meant for Dr. Sivels, and what that could mean for other people. And you can continue to go further with more research. There's some interesting pieces of research that the students can do or that you can share with students specifically about Dr. Sivels' journey, what supports would have been helpful in college or grad school. There's some links to curiosity camps, which is part of the partnership with the If Then collection, which is another fantastic collection of women scientists and STEM careers. And then there's several different links to the If Then collection with Dr. Sivels in it. And then exploring the opportunity to explore other recent Black women and the National Inventors Hall of Fame. So that could be an additional, like, going further opportunity for you to do with your students. There's a linked activity following the going further and researching chemical engineers. There's an activity of chemical engineering challenge in which you would have the students actually create a glowing, bouncing egg, which would be really cool in a chemistry class to be able to do that and get the eggs to glow in the dark. So there's a link to an activity that allows you to do that. And then there's some more career opportunities where there's some interesting information about Ciara's teacher had helped her recognize how her love of baking and chemistry could kind of guide her into a career path and discuss some career choices for your own students by using the NEPRIS Career Explorer. And there's a link to that Career Explorer page, and students can type in things that they might think that they would like to know more about and find some career explorations, or specifically look at what is a chemical engineer or some other field related to what you're currently teaching. And then the Society of Women the Society of Women Engineers, there's another link for the Society of Women Engineers that has a lot of different activities that students can do. And there's some outreach for girls under the age of 18 for SWE Next, which is an opportunity to encourage, again, young women to follow engineering career pathways. And then we have the final piece, which is to meet some other scientists, particularly engineers. So there are several scientists who have been linked on the document to the If Then collection, which is another initiative by the Lyda Hill Philanthropies, which helps to, again, show representation in the STEM fields. And it's all about women. If they can see it, then she can be it. And it's an amazing collection of a very wide variety of women in STEM. And there are 4 examples here in the guide that you can explore with your students and do some more career exploration. And again, the guide is meant as a guide. It's not meant to, if you're going to show this film, you have to do this with them. There are definitely pieces that you can absolutely include within your own classrooms, however they seem to fit best for you, and whatever will make the most sense in order for yourself to do with your students as well. Let me see if there were any comments. Okay, I don't. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Karen. Absolutely. That piece, I think in the most recent of our teaching careers in the last 2 years, it's really important for us to get some positive encouragement from students and former students about the role we play in their lives and the decisions that they make for their future. So it was a sweet and tender moment when he was reading the letter from MIT that she had recommended him. So Are there any other questions about the guide, about the films, or the upcoming films? And please feel free to share. The whole documentary should be actually online pretty easily. I'm pretty sure if you Googled 3M, not the science type, it is actually on YouTube. So I think that you can get the link there. I'm not sure where else you might find it. Any other questions? I know that if there will be a raffle later on this evening, and that Amazon gift card will be emailed to you at the email address that you registered at. But good luck to those of you who are looking forward to that gift card. If there's no other questions, I hope you all enjoyed it, and we're so grateful to have you join us this evening, and hope that you will join us for the remaining sessions. They are on the 9th. Nope, next week, the 9th, sorry. The 9th, the 19th, which is a Saturday. And then I'm just double checking to make sure that I have the dates correct. The 9th, the 19th, which is a Saturday, and then a Wednesday, the 23rd, we'll finish watching all 3 of the remaining scientists in the docuseries and debuting their guides. And then the entire guides and documentary will be available as of April 1st on NIMSY's sites. If that question is specifically for NIMSY, I can direct that question to the NIMSY higher ups, but I wouldn't have the answer to that right now. But we can definitely find out what their thoughts are about mentoring a teacher. Yes, the guides are written for 45 to 60-minute class periods. Again, the idea is to watch one snippet of each individual film, to watch the whole individual film instead of the entire length. The entire length documentary is still only about 30 minutes. So you could show the whole film, but ideally we wrote them with the idea of watching each individual story and then doing part of the guide. Some of the activities that are in the guides, we've given, in some cases, several different activities that could follow after watching the film. So you wouldn't have to necessarily do all of the activities in the film. You can pick and choose which ones would work best for you. So the idea of the before, during, and after would be 45 minutes, and then maybe the after could be an additional follow-up period if you're doing one of the activities. Of course, the discussion portion prior to the film and after the film will all depend on the students in your classroom. Those discussions could be really lengthy or not so much. You're welcome. If there aren't any more questions, then thank you again so much for coming. And we really do hope to see you at our next screening, which will be next Wednesday, the 9th. And we will be watching Dr. Jessica Taft's story. So please join us if you are available next Wednesday. Thank you.